So, Brian Monzingo, say it right? Yeah. And Lab 49 now. And then Erik Isaksen from 3Pillar Global are going to talk to us about prototyping. You guys have been to the group for a while, so it's always great to have folks come and talk. So, did it not come up? Oh, because you're close. All right, excellent. So you guys get started.
Hi. Happy birthday, NoVA UX.
Hey, cheers.
This is today, June 18th, 2014. I'm Brian, and this is Erik. I'm a UX designer, and Erik.
I'm a UX engineer at 3Pillar,
which is a very cool job. You don't hear those two terms together a lot, UX and engineer, but we love him in the discipline. And
Hey Brian.
yes.
Do me a favor.
Speak up.
Speak up.
Okay.
If you want to break off the mic, you can break off the mic too if you want.
I just gotta get warmed up.
All right.
All right. We wrote a description for NoVA UX about what we were going to talk about, and you probably read it when you RSVP'd. It is this is a prototyping case study, and it's a little bit unique because we're not going to talk about the technical parts like the tools and stuff that were mentioned before by Jim. We're going to talk about how prototyping fits in product development, and it's constantly being redefined as you are prototyping. So we'll be talking about the process that we went through to build a prototype for this financial company in about 6 weeks, and really everything that imposes itself on the creation of a prototype.
Yeah, when I was hired as the first UX engineer over at 3Pillar Global, the idea was pitched to me as, well, we're going to make up a role for you because you're really good with the front end tools, but you also have a good eye for design, which I don't, but I was nice of them to say. So they invented this thing and said, you know what you're going to do mostly is there's a big call for prototyping so that we can test ideas and make sure that companies are spending less money long term, and we'll get more revenue in the meantime. So with that said, we'll talk about the processes and what we learned, and it's very different how we're doing it now versus how we did it then. So we learned a lot along the way.
That's the key for this. We didn't want to talk about how we've got it perfected. We wanted to talk about all the things that we got wrong and learned from. Because that is what life is all about. You keep messing up and then you sharpen each other, you get better. And I wrote a thing which I think I said before, but reading it I think will be better. The prototype itself is not the end goal when you're doing a prototype for a product development effort. As UX designers, as UX practitioners, our end goal is to build a great product experience, but if we're not building the product, ourselves, we must be able to communicate how to build a great product to someone who can. So I'm not the one who's writing the deployment code, but I need to help that person understand what it is he's writing.
Right.
So we build a prototype which speaks, well, if pictures say 1,000 words, a prototype could say like 100,000. Or like an infinity, because it's interactive.
Yeah, it tells a lot more than a static page like a mock-up can tell you, as most of you probably already know.
Yeah, prototyping is hard.
Yes, prototyping is hard, as we found out.
So we're going to try and keep today simple. Someone who's way better at us than giving presentations, named Jessica Hall at 3Pillar, told us, these are the ingredients to a good presentation. Have a compelling problem, share a unique solution, share your takeaways or your learnings, and then try to incorporate some fun activities. So we are going to try that toward the end.
And there will be an activity regardless of the funness.
Yes, there will be some moving around.
So the compelling problem we had was we had this private investment company. They had the best data, but maybe that they didn't have something that the other competition had. So the other competition was coming in and stealing the market. So they knew they had this problem. They didn't know quite why. So they were like, we've heard all these buzzwords, UX, UX, UX. Come in here and fix it for us. And so, okay, we'll come in and we'll see what we can do. And share by offering better product experiences. So that was a key thing, is the collaboration and the sharing of everything.
Yeah, they actually wanted to work with us. They didn't want to just push the button and see the product come out.
They were really interested in why this was happening and what they could do to make it better. Not like, just come in here and fix it, and we don't want to know what you did to fix it. We don't want to know what the user said or anything like that. They were really involved, and that really provided a lot of value for the entire project.
Yeah, it kind of offset the fact that we aren't financial experts. So as consultants at 3 Pillar, we work on products from all sorts of different industries. And so we're constantly having to get ramped up on, well, what is the wearables market all about? What is this financial market all about? What are pharmaceuticals, medical stuff? So we had to humble ourselves and learn from the people we were working with. They were open to learning from us as well. This is kind of the context that we were in which we were creating a prototype. And like Erik said, the first and the last bullet points here, our customer had a desire to learn and grow through the process, so their eyes were open to kind of the fishbowl of what was going on, and they wanted to see the process as well as the product.
Yeah, that was really key for me, to have the stakeholders involved, right? Because at a corporate level, having worked in several corporations, like larger companies, if the culture will always win, right? So if you're trying to change things and there's no buy-in at that top level of, hey, we should really consider UX as our primary, a primary thing, like we consider performance, we consider security, but UX, it's just pretty stuff, I'm preaching to the choir here, but it was really good to have that buy-in before we even said, hey, you have to be concerned about this. They realized that at the beginning, and that was lucky for us to have this on our first large engagement for prototyping.
So that's the compelling problem part. The unique solution is a 2-step. The first component of our unique solution was think through making, and that's how we were able to expose our process and collaborate with our customer. This slide says UX led a 6-week prototyping effort to test product ideas and build on customer feedback. A lot of times when you think of leading a product development effort, UX isn't necessarily the first skill set that you think of, because the
driving force, right?
Yeah, not the driving force. UX and design is often brought in at the end to make things look better, because all the requirements are outlined and it just needs a facelift. But we wanted to use the activity of building a prototype to help guide the rest of the product development team to create those requirements and to visualize what it is the product was going to be. And we kind of were not passive, but what's the word? We facilitated activity so that other people could bring their ideas and we could write them all down. We weren't going somewhere and operating in a vacuum.
We brought the playground to them. So as far as this goes too, if you look at this 6-week prototyping, I look back, this is almost a year ago. 6 weeks is a long time to prototype. But back then, I was like, oh my God, are we going to have time to actually build everything that we need to build? And so there was this conception of, we're building this product, when really, when we decided on what a prototype means to us, it wasn't really a product, it was something else.
These are a few slides of what we did while we were thinking through making. These note cards are organized around some themes and insights that we learned about from 2 weeks of user interviews. this was an existing product, and the team that we were working with thought they knew exactly what it needed to do, but we got to do some research, and we recorded it and took notes, and then went back through each interview and pulled out the themes, the things that we heard people saying consistently, and then organized them around the user goals. We had some cool quotes. That was really helpful when we presented the findings back to our customer, because our customer's customer said all kinds of funny things about the product, really convicting things to help us galvanize around some certain things that need to be fixed. Themes, insights, and internal and external opportunities. Just real quick on the last one, internal, external opportunities. You can find out all sorts of things about a business beyond just the product itself. We found out that in terms of educating new customers, there was some opportunity there, so people didn't know exactly how to use the product to its full potential, and our customer wasn't offering that service, and that opened up an opportunity for them that was beyond just the product itself.
Yeah, we found that in this particular project, there's many people internally who used it, right? So there was like 2 gurus that everyone would go to. If those people were on vacation, everyone's screwed. So it was very interesting to see. So that they did definitely have that issue as far as the education of the product. One thing I would like to add to this though is that this wasn't like UX goes and interviews people in a silo. We involved the product management team, we involved other people internally in our group, and then every week we would discuss formally with the client, hey, this is what we found out. And Brian led great design stuff, what would you call it?
I think they were called design sessions.
Sessions. So basically though, that was a conversation. It wasn't, this is what we found, here's the PDF, go. That was collaborative work, which was incredible to see. And in between that, we were on site for most of it. So we're constantly like, hey, yeah, I have a question about this, can you come over here? And it was really cool that people were open to that at such a large company.
A lot of this stuff will look familiar to you. This is some sketching work that we did collaboratively. These are those giant Post-it pads. We went up in front of the customer and made fools of ourselves, like drawing it, and then, oh no, that's wrong, tear it off. Yeah. And it's fun to see what people's reaction to their idea on paper is immediately when they say something, and you just draw it right away, and they're like, oh wait, no, that's not what I meant. And you can get through a conversation and a definition of something a lot faster when you can visualize someone's idea immediately. Stuff is crossed out. You know, we did like 4 of these, 1, 2, 3s, before we finally got to the right thing. Same interface hierarchy. We were just trying to get from the, what is the most important thing that you need to know on the interface, and then what's the last thing. And people have differences of opinion. Someone from this part of the organization will say, well, this is the most important thing, and someone else will say, no, this isn't. So you get to let them duke it out, and you just move a Post-it note up or down, and it's a lot of fun. It's like interpretive arguments.
I just thought we brought the big notepads to look smart, but it worked out pretty nice. You look smart, so I'm sorry.
They're too nice.
So, yeah, with this we would build based on those drawings. Once we had something that we could semi-agree on, where it was like, I don't know, maybe, stop, let's just test it. Let's go build something real quick and test it. And one of the things I learned really slowly in this particular case was, as a developer, I don't know if there's any developers here, but if somebody gives me a task and says, hey, we have this problem, I'm going to try and think of the most complicated way I can fix this. And I'm going to build something grand and monolithic. And with the prototyping, you're moving so fast. You're just going to do maybe one piece of the form. that you're going to test, but some small little chunk of some functionality. You get the core idea. It doesn't have to have pretty pictures or anything, but that was a real struggle for me. So we would build, and then with that we would test, and then we would build, and we would test, and build and test. You get the idea.
Erik mentioned before the design sessions. For people who weren't with us every day as we were working through things, and maybe they were in another city or they weren't available, we'd kind of leave a paper trail of our design. So what happened throughout the week? It looked like this, and then so-and-so said this, and then it turned into this, and now this is what we're showing you. So when you have that meeting where everybody decides to show up, and why did you make this decision, instead of everyone having this arbitrary conversation, you have the paper trail. You say, well, this was what we found, that's when we made the decision, okay, let's move on.
Yeah, definitely.
The prototype itself, also as it evolved, it became this thing to talk about too. It was a real, tangible object. This is an example of 3 different presentations that we did during a design session. So they're kind of structured the same way for each one. There's the title page, there's the step in the UX process. The dot moves over a little bit each time, and then you set up like what's the goal of this meeting. It's very clear. The product owner loves that. You've got a focus for this meeting, then some content from that week. This is also very humbling. These red lines are the things that you said that you promised you would do, but you can't yet. They're like blockers and things, so it gets people moving, gets their momentum going toward the end of the meeting. And then we repeat ourselves at the end. This is where we are, this is where we're going, this is what you can look for next week. And it's easy to say that, and we all have it in our minds when we're working on stuff, but to share it with other people and make it visual, it was really beneficial to the process.
Yeah, and early on, for this project, this set up the template for this so that we didn't have to redo this whole thing all over again. Once we decided as a UX team internally, hey, these are the kind of ideas that we have, here's a template, it became part of the process right away, so that was really helpful for projects that came after this.
Do you have a name for that template?
So, something.
No, we don't. It's the design session template, I guess.
We defer to Jessica Hall.
Yeah,
our Innovate
all the
practice.
smart stuff. Takeaways. So you saw our process, you saw what our problem and solution was oriented around. Now these are like the lessons learned. These are the things that we want to repeat or not repeat, and we want to teach you. This is why we're exposing this, all the things that we got wrong. Stick together, maintain the vision, roll big picture, know activity ROI, and kill your pride. So these 5 things, we'll just do a quick kind of one slide on each one. Stick together. I'm just going to read this because be on the same page with your teammates, go to the same meetings, make time to share intelligence, don't just put it on the wiki. We were part of a team, it wasn't just us, even on the 3-pillar side, product managers, business analysts.
And having the meetings have an agenda for those action-oriented people, unlike myself. And making sure that those are few and far between. Like if you're gonna make somebody at your stakeholders come to a meeting, definitely make it worth it for them because they probably don't have a lot of time. But yeah, this was really key, sticking together.
And co-locating, where Erik would update pieces of code and we'd try it out differently.
Yeah, we were on video chats too, with drawing some stuff, holding it up, and then going back and forth with that too. So there's some cases where people can't be there all in the same room, but you still want to have that collaborative back and forth. And sometimes, obviously, the video will drop, but it's okay. You can just call back. So this is to maintain the vision. This is our job. So, as it says, it's essential for design leadership. So we all know what we're doing and how we get there. So what that means is like keeping keeping the focus of like, this is what are we really doing here? Why are we building this thing? Because that's going to really drive the business outcome. What are you trying to do with the prototype? A lot of people, even when we first started building prototypes, you know, there was this idea: are we going to reuse the code and put it into production, and build, you know, take that and turn it into a process, and we'll have components that we pull in, and
Already you're distracted from
Yeah,
what the vision is
exactly.
because you're thinking about this other stuff. And so for us to keep this high level and play dumb and just say, okay, I don't really understand that. Are we still doing this? Then that helps everyone focus while we spend time together.
So rolling the big
good
picture.
Transition.
This is something our former CTO, Colin Desab, talked about, was take care of the big stones first. You know, build stuff like if you have to test something, make sure it's something very important, right? If you have to scaffold something out, just build the frame. Don't put the details in for everything. Only detail what you really need to work with.
What we did that we would redo is not build the prototype end to end and then test it. We would say, we're going to try out this sliding saved report thing.
And to be fair though, we did try that first, and it failed miserably, so we had to go back
Yeah.
and start again.
Yeah, and we would get details and requirements would change. Well, this drop down should have these things in it, not the things that you're showing. And so we'd go and spend half a day on replacing the drop down menu items with the real ones, but then that's going to change again later on. And to be able to identify that, okay, yes, we know that it's important what is in that drop down list, but that's not what we're trying to do with the prototype. We're trying to visualize an experience, and it doesn't really matter what the detailed things are. So let's move on and delegate the task of figuring out what goes in those drop downs to someone else. Knowing your activity ROI. This is kind of a hard thing for people who are trained as artists or like creative thinkers, because it doesn't really matter. Money is kind of lame. So it doesn't, it's just cool to be free and draw stuff. But working for a business and having people see what you're doing every week is it's something that's convicting for free thinkers. So we start to rethink things that we're doing. If I'm spending a little extra time on how many pixels this drop shadow should blend or something, that really is not helping my customer's end goal. And I should rethink what I'm doing. Okay, maybe not work on the drop shadow. Maybe see if Erik needs any help with the sketches that I drew, if they're hard to read.
It's an easy, slippery slope for developers. Someone gives you this grand idea that, wait, we can do it this way. And there's no other jQuery plugin that does it like this. And there's nothing out there that works like this. There might be a reason, but in your head you're thinking, oh my God, I can build that. I can do this. And then you get distracted, like we were saying before, but where you want to be. And you're like, okay, well, maybe I could have stopped at 4 or 5 hours into that, instead of taking a full day or 2 days or 3 days to really flush it out and start working with it. So you learn that there is a cost to all the work that you're doing. Yeah, this was really hard. It's like I think it's true of all artists and developers that you have this. I want to be the best at what I do, and it's really true in UX. I find as well. It's just, but understanding that there's these experts in other areas that you're working with, and they really know their stuff, and trusting them and collaborating together. If you can let go, which is not easy, but if you can let go, all these ideas start just happening. So you're not really forcing any brainstorming or anything like this. These things are just happening. You'll see like the CEO and and me or Brian just coming up with ideas, and then somebody who's walking by, came in to give a paper to somebody. Oh my God, that's so cool. What are you guys working on? Here, oh, what about this? Do this. And you never know where the best ideas are going to come from. So just understanding that everyone has something they can contribute, and that you shouldn't go in with a preconceived notion of what this is supposed to be like, or what this is. To be open to that, and just sort of put that right there, and then later on you can bring it back, but just keep it there until you can better collaborate.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add other than listen and stop talking so much. This was the activity part. I don't know how we're doing on time, but we had this activity that we'd like people to participate in that we've got pins and a handout for, but it's built around kind of what we talked about at the beginning, that building a prototype is one part of the product development process, and to understand the bigger picture of the process that you're in is very helpful, and also to plan the UX activities in advance so that you can be a step ahead, or that when someone asks, well, what are we going to do now? You've got the answer. So this activity is a fake product. Well, not a fake one. It would be a real product, but it's an idea for a product that we would like you as individuals, or as 2 or 3 people sitting together, to imagine how you might solve this with a process, not necessarily what the solution itself would be. A lot of us creative minds can see the solution immediately, but we haven't gone through the due diligence of talking about that to other people, because our ideas in our minds are perfect, because they are imaginary. So this specific product has all these requirements, and we'll leave this slide up while you guys are working, but what we want to do is have you prioritize the requirements. Maybe they're not the line items themselves, but they are an activity that would help develop those line items. Define the role of the prototype through that process.
Visualize the plan, how you're going to achieve this, and communicate to the group if you want, like afterwards, you want to come up and discuss what you found. We'd love to hear. See what you guys have come up with.
We would love that, because you will probably be amazed at how many different plans you'll get for the same thing. So being able to hear what someone else's plan is will be valuable. So this product that you'll be working on, just a few minutes, think through this, is an enterprise communication product. We all know that some of the hardest software we have to use throughout the week are the internal tools for filling out our timesheet, having an internal discussion, submitting a time off request, finding out a job description, the company directory, an expense report, an Excel spreadsheet, the company calendar, all these things. Wouldn't it be nice to have one place to go for all this, one experience? So that's the food for thought. We would like to call a couple of representatives from your group. If anyone feels passionate about the idea that they came up with and would like to share it with the group, please raise your hand, come up. Just, pardon? You had fun. So one outlook on the planning UX process is fun. That's something you can remember and tell your clients.
An idea they'd like to share with the group?
Anything.
Cool insight? 50 sketch?
You guys want to come up as a group and talk about this?
We're standing in place.
Early,
Yes.
always, late, middle, late, early.
what we did is kind of group these into chunks of activities, and in the beginning there are some fundamental elements like behavior models, competitive analyses, value propositions, just to understand what we're doing up front. Then we got into more of a idea phase, and looks like step 1 is super light, so that step 0 though had a bunch of stuff. But then we wanted to understand what the users were doing, so we looked at user research, mental models, workflow diagramming, and we thought at that stage, as we began to understand the user requirements, to also maybe start sketching some concepts out. Then get into wireframes and prototypes. So we kind of worked in the big chunks of activity as we went from understanding to developing something conceptual, and then 4 is also one step, composition. So, and then we got into like more deploy code and actually building the final. So we weren't thinking that we'd be building much code up front. We'd be doing prototyping using a tool. So
That's really good. What's good about that is the steps that you took are in a very good order, and it reminds me of what we were doing too in the case study that we talked through. So doing all those steps on like a sub-component that you're working on, instead of trying to do the whole product through that, break it up into nice swim lanes and do all those steps that you said in that order, but just for the timesheet portion, or just for the entering in numbers in a grid portion, and do that again for the expense report, not trying to like put the whole thing into one workflow, one phase.
Yeah, it's right into the agile way of, just vertical slices. So definitely, great job, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I saw your hand.
Okay, well, we didn't exactly work that way. We first were like, okay, well, we should make it look like an iPhone app, there's everything there. And then she suggested, well, if we do it like that, everything you look for the iPhone, then it's going to get really busy really fast. So we had to take a step back and say, okay, what's the problem? The problem is the users can't find what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So we jumped to the end and then went backwards. And then we realized that in order for them to find what they're looking for, we need to do user interviews of, with step by step. We didn't get much further than that. We were discussing a lot. But the idea was to have things separated in categories. So, for example, something HR related in one category, finance related in one category, and then do them like that on your page, on your login if you go to a page, and customize it per user. But I think we're going too fast, too deep, and we're getting into, how am I going to make that? And so I said, okay, let's get back to the big picture. So it's easy to get stuck into the smaller picture.
There's no bad ideas. You can always pull it back.
Yeah.
It's harder to push forward. So I think that's a good approach, and then you just got to make sure that you have that check. There's
Right.
got to be somebody in the group who says, like after the brainstorming, not like during it.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we should pull back a little bit here. Let's talk about this piece.
Right.
I think when you brought up mobile though, and like for
Well, the
phone.
mobile was actually more for me was like the visual part. Like, on your iPhone app, you have all these icons, and maybe have a landing page when you log into your internal site that has these like icons. So these timesheet, expense report will be icons.
I think it's great though, because like even though you said that you were like, oh, we didn't want to do that. I think if you do that, having constraints definitely makes it so that not initially in the brainstorming pieces of it, but like having those constraints of saying, well, I have only this small area to work with. What's really important? That's really helpful for testing for sure.
Yeah, that reminds me of the list item on there. I think it was home screen or landing page.
Landing page, yeah.
Yeah, landing page. That's a fun activity to do together, because you're almost talking through the information architecture, because when someone gets to the page, it's like their first impression of everything that it does. And so if you can think about everything that you want it to do and organize it on the landing page in a way that is helpful for people, and you do that early, it kind of helps structure the rest of the activities. Like, okay, so this we decided is the most important. Now let's do one of these kind of processes through that thing, and then go back to the next
But I
thing.
think what was very clear is that it's so easy to get kind of distracted, and rather than going through the steps that you need to build it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good exercise.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you, it's really great.
I have a question. You said it took a couple weeks for your initial kind of deep dive, your discovery phase. Was that part of the 6-week process, or was it 2 weeks of the discovery and then 6 weeks of prototyping?
It was all encompassing.
part of the 6
Okay.
weeks.
So, and did you find that 6 weeks was kind of the sweet spot? Could you have done it before, or was 6 weeks? You know, did you have to feel like you were
I think we
cramming it?
did. We did the interviews a little long. After about, let's say, 8 or 9, you start hearing the same thing that you've already heard. I think we did 16 or 17, and that was almost twice as many as we should have done. And your customer might say, no, but we really need to hear from this guy because he's like a really important customer and he has this very unique perspective. But after you've talked to 8, 9 people, they've all said what that one guy would say. So you can also prioritize who you talk to and, you know, work around their schedules and get the guy from Dubai who uses all these tweaks for his application. Definitely get him scheduled, you know, early and work around it. But yeah, we could have done it faster, I think, if we had spent less time on the interviews.
Yeah, I think I've been on most of the prototyping engagements that we've had. Not all of them, but I feel like each client is different. But the 6 weeks was the longest one that we had. So it's definitely, we've had some that are, you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. 4 weeks seems to be sort of like where it seems to be, but we've kind of like changed the process a little since. So we're kind of feeling out different clients, like and where we can fit things in. Like fidelity in prototyping is a concern for some clients, but you're testing ideas, so some clients don't want to necessarily have that. So it's sort of like can't fully answer it for everybody.
And did you ever involve the actual, you know, the customer, the end user, you will,
Sure.
as part of the prototyping, like as a focus group or something like
Yeah,
that?
and immediately. We actually, what we doubled up, we did the user interviews, and then we returned to those people with the prototype and said, so, you told us all this stuff, and we made this. Does it address what you told us? And that was almost an affirmation to them that yes, we were listening, but then it was for us to say, did we really make what you were talking about? And that's kind of unique, or it was unique for me to be able to return to those same people.
Yeah, we also did some hallway testing where we just, you know, we were on site for most of it, so it was nice to be able to just say, hey, you know, we're at 3 Pillar Global. We're just we're testing this thing. You might come just come on in, really.
Mm-hmm.
Test this out. And it was cool to get other people who weren't necessarily going to be users of that, but they were in that industry too, to get them involved as well.
Thank you.
What was the,
I think you had your hand up before you.
Well, you guys started touching on the participants, and I was curious about that, but in terms of testing, how formal was the environment outside of the walking down the hall test? But, you know, how structured were your testing process? Can you talk a little bit about that?
We did a WebEx for several of them, people who were in different countries, and we had them, let's see, how did we rig it? We had to think through it. We had them share their screen to us after we sent them the URL of the prototype. So we would say, go through your normal, you know, financial report building process using our prototype, and tell us what you're thinking while you're, you know, moving your mouse around, while you're looking at the interface. Don't just think, you know, talk. And you could see where they're clicking and what they're saying when it happens. We recorded the video and we took notes and stuff. So it was, and we kind of had a script as well, which helped guide us through it if people got off track. And so it wasn't like a clean room with recordings everywhere, but we tried to keep it casual but structured.
Put the recorder in the middle of the table. I think for some engagements though too, like just to add to that, I mean absolutely right with that, but we had, after this, we had a few engagements where it was a new product, right? It wasn't something existing, and in that case we had more of a guided approach to it. We've had to do some demonstrations with prototypes too that are not necessarily limited to a screen, where you're involving like Internet of Things type of integration. So it's a lot about the performance of it too. So which is pretty exciting for me. I like that.
Yes, sir.
I think my
Answer?
question
All right.
but
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do any eye tracking testing?
We did not do eye tracking on this one. We did some research on that, and for the type of work that we're doing, the innovation and kind of new product stuff, it isn't as helpful as it could be to research an existing product, to iterate on it. Yeah. Yes.
Did any of the other activities like dev or test or integration with other systems, did any of that roll into the 6 weeks, or did it all stay and wait to the end of the 6-week period to start?
Oh, integration with other systems. That was like a huge theme from the very beginning that they didn't even know about, how many people were like hitting the database with like access queries, and if we changed anything, that was going to mess up all their stuff. So we just had to raise that flag at the beginning and get somebody on it.
Yeah, we had an architect on this who helped us to figure a lot of those problems out. Mostly from the front side of it.
Yes, sir.
I have an idea for a process.
You do?
Yeah.
Or speak there.
I mean, is this what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, this is a thing.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I wasn't like jumping in there.
Until people just get so like they want cake really bad. I imagine they'll just all stand up. Yeah, what's your idea?
Well, the idea is basically to instead of evaluating it as sort of a web interface, think about it as a product that needs to be designed and then smash the pieces as fast as you can so that you know that it's going to be good when it's done. So my idea, since we have a client, of course, we need to talk to them. Second, come up with hypothesis of what you think you're gonna, what you think is gonna, be a good solution. Ideation, generate some ideas, create some prototypes right away,
Nice.
put them in front of the users, and that way, the users get to smash them.
Mm-hmm. They break it and you fix it.
And then, yeah, if they don't break it, then you're good. If they do, usually they break it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that way for, if anyone has ever done teaching, it's the same way. You're going to learn more from your students than you're going to actually teach them.
Exactly.
So it's,
But one of the most important things is to set up a set of sort of KPIs for yourself, for the testing itself, to create sort of cohort analytics so that you know, okay, these are the people that you're testing against, this is another segment of people that you're testing, and this is another segment of people that you're testing. And, okay, what's the flow of this
For that person.
for that person versus
You're,
this
you're
person?
so right about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something that was unique, or not unique, but what we had done early on was divide up our users into all these different types, and we thought it was really critical to hit all of them. But then what we found out, everybody was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So we did all that upfront work of segmenting users and seeing what different users did, and after we did 3 different ones, we realized they were all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so not spending too much time on that segmentation, but knowing that it's there,
Yeah.
just in case.
Exactly. And like this is an application, and like a website, it's sort of like hierarchical,
Yes.
right? Applications are like, I don't know what you would call it,
Yeah. You can
but
see
you
where
need
you're
to be
going.
able to go, you know, in any direction is from any point.
Mhm.
So the navigation system is very different from, say,
It's like
a site that you're selling a product. When you're selling a product, you're trying to sell them and go into a funnel. In an application, you need to facilitate
That fluid
Yeah.
movement
maneuver.
across
Yeah.
the application without funneling down into it.
Something to buy.
Yeah.
Very good. What is your name?
Dave,
Dave.
nice to meet you.
Okay, 1 or 2 more questions.
So you said you had, for this project, you guys are talking about this, you had 6 weeks, but usually it's not 4 weeks, right?
Depends, but yeah, I think
refined it a
we
little
refined it
bit,
a little,
yeah.
so it's a little shorter engagement, sure.
Okay, what is your actual client's deliverable at the end of, say, a 4-week engagement?
It's an interesting idea there, the deliverable at the end. So
Aside from all that.
typically when they're spending a lot of money, clients will want to have some deliverables or deliverable. So typically that's the actual prototype code, and also there is design assets. We usually have all of the user stuff reported, like we said with this one we have a WebEx. So all that is available to them. How it gets delivered side, and then package it up at the end with whoever's leading the project with the team. Maybe the salesperson would get involved to help deliver to them, depending on the client. But yeah, we definitely have the code in some way. We usually have, if it's an HTML prototype, which is typically the ones I've been doing, we'll also have a live, subdomain on our site that'll have their prototype so they can access and test it or have other people look at it. And then, we'll turn it off at a certain point after the engagement, unless we're still involved with them in other types of engagements.
Okay, but you do turn over real code to them.
Realish. That's a good point. Like with prototyping, one of the hard things, you as a developer, is that you want to make everything perfect. There's, I try to do JavaScript testing, TDD, working with Ruby. I try to do a lot of that. But with prototyping, there's a lot of times where I've had to put in image maps. Don't hate. Image maps. But or use some Photoshoppy type of program to generate some HTML for me, which I would never deliver to production, right? But this is mostly to test the ideas. We're not building products. Yeah, you got to get it out quick. I've had the luxury on some of these to experiment with new technologies and play around, but it doesn't happen all the time.
Okay.
One more question.
Just kind of a follow-up to that, I think that completely get the done and the purpose in this particular situation. I think one of the interesting insights that came out of our sort of process and planning was this, okay, yeah, we get the general, or like the traditional track of how to develop a product, okay, discovery, design, build, QA, deploy, etc. But if you put that through the lens of a prototype, I think the interesting, or the dynamic, I think where we sort of towards the end started to discuss is what do you short? What do you let go? What do you let not be perfect so you get done? And like, okay,
Exactly
so about
right.
the 16 interviews, we have 8, we have 4 weeks. So what do you? I think that to me is sort of like the art to the science of prototyping versus sort of the more traditional way. Also, how to manage that client expectation, because it's because again, to your point of like, okay, we're going to give you code that's realish. And they're like, yeah, well, what do you mean we can't turn it and use this? To like build on again.
Well, it can use it.
It's just one of those like, and I think that's a tough thing to navigate. And I mean, you gave us some perspectives when you were talking on some of those things, but to me, that's the most interesting sort of insight for the next exercise.
I have a follow-up to that, which is I've been thinking about the whole way through, which is, it sounds like you guys are doing this a lot, and I'm guessing it's a big part of your sales process, is to make sure that the guys that are selling the projects, or selling your services, it's like, this is how we do it. Prototype first, and like, and is that true, or?
It's actually a smaller piece of our business. And it was my favorite piece of the business. But I mean, usually this will lead to hopefully other engagements. Like, well, we created this innovate for you, and now that we've learned these things, we can actually build it for you. And they may opt to go with other companies that they've worked with before that they feel comfortable, but they have that option, right? We have the context at that point of the ideas, so we could theoretically build out stuff quicker. We try to involve the engineering team as early as possible for what we call like accelerate type of engagements. Should be the typical sprints where you go through and just build a product. So if we involve some of them earlier on, like in even overlapping the process of prototyping, which we haven't ventured with, in this case they actually use the prototype to help them understand the product better when we actually built it, which was great.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because on our last design session, we realized that we needed to define what the prototype was in this context. It's a guide for the development to start, because this was going to become a real product, and it was a communication for the customer internally of this is what we're making, so they were able to take it around. So along with the prototype, the realish code, we often deliver the script so that the customer can go and show it to other people, and they have this list of questions that they're going to ask, get yes or no questions, and then they have analytics on that to give back to us later on if they end the engagement after the prototype and then restart later on. They have some data.
Okay. Can I ask one question? Sure. Okay, I'm a developer, so apologize if I ask something that is not in the context. You mentioned about TDD.
Yes.
So at which point do you do the UX process? I'm not a UX person.
So I say that for if I'm doing production code, if I'm on a project that's not a prototype, I typically will start trying to use TDD for JavaScript, or because I'm mostly front-end development, right? Or back-end if I'm going to use something like Ruby or some other language, I'll do that. But because of the time that it takes to do these type of engagements, that type of testing is not necessarily efficient in our experience. Maybe other processes will allow that to work better, but in our experience with it, it didn't really lend itself.
But because we are dealing with UI or UX, there's no automated tool, right? It's all like communicating with the user and testing, A/B testing, whatever. Right?
So yeah, I mean we're not like I used to do a lot of cross-browser development with Internet Explorer, and all the way back to 6, in some cases 5. For prototyping though, we pick a target, and that depends on the product. Typically it's Chrome, the latest Chrome. but
you want the prototype to work.
If the clients, yes, exactly. But the clients and users are only on Internet Explorer 11 and 10, or even 8. Yeah, I'll probably build a prototype with that in mind, so that they can see it the way that they would see it. And now, whether that code is the same or not, it's just more of smoke and mirrors at that point.
But you try to do it as early as possible, right?
Yeah. No, well, TDD, it doesn't happen in the prototyping process. Okay? Testing in the prototype process is, I look at the console and it doesn't break. So, just cowboy style, or figure it out that way. It's a good point though. Testing is important, but it's more important we test the ideas, not the code.
Well said. Thank you guys. That was fun. We're still here, so if you guys have additional questions, hit us up. Thank you, Done With Digital, for the pizza. We really appreciate it.